Oh, welcome guys back to my channel. My name is Igor. I am test automation engineer. I am sharing with you different tips and tricks, different test automation frameworks which we can use on your daily basis. And in this episode we are going to cover three most important test design patterns. That's a page object or POM, that's a singleton and factory. And first things first, let me share my screen and start this lesson. We are going to use in today's video Cursor IDE. That's a new IDE which has built-in AI features. As we can see, you can have a chat with bots, and for example, you can type show me example of POM in TypeScript. Again, POM is PageObject model, which we are going to discover a little bit later. But just one command line could generate you an example of homepage. And I propose you to start. First, we need to create our project. I propose you to start from the scratch. Let's install Playwright. npm init Playwright, and we are going to use latest version. We need TypeScript. We are going to use tests folder. We don't need actions, and let's install browsers. While it's installing, let's talk a little bit about PageObject model. What's that and what it's needed for? And PageObject is critical for organizing your test code by separating page-specific interactions from test logic. This makes your tests easier to read, maintain, and scale. Each page should have its own model, and on that page you can describe properties such as most important selectors on the page. You can create methods which you are going to use in your tests. For example, we can take a look at login page. Login page should have login form with username and password and submit button. So on your login page you are going to have username selector, you are going to have password selector and submit button selector. Also, you need one method, that's login method, which is going to accept username and password, and inside you basically have testing logic where you fill in username, fill in password and click submit button. So our page object is installed, and let's get back. We don't need test examples, we can delete it. Let's write a couple of the tests. We have some basic tests which we are going to adapt, and for example, we have our main page, and on this main page we can discover some elements. For example, we can find hero unit. If we inspect our page, and we can see there is a hero header which we want to make sure that is visible on the page. Next one, we can also check our footer. We want to make sure that footer is rendered on our home page. It has footer class. And so let's get back to our page and add a couple of methods. For example, we are waiting that our page should have title Playwright, but that's not everything what we want to check. We can, for example, check expect. We can check that locator hero is present on the page, and what we are basically doing is writing page locator. We want to have locator. Let's get back and see. for our hero unit. That's a class hero. Let's copy it. And cursor proposes you pre-installed AI autocomplete, as we can see here, but we don't need it for now. So we want to see locator here to be visible, to be displayed, on the page. And we want to check also our footer. Footer should have footer class. As simple as that. Alright, and let's move on and let's see what second test does. We open home page, we are clicking link with name get started, and we are certain that installation name is available after our click. That's how typically tests looks without PageObject model. And for example, if you have 5 or 6 different tests which check random stuff, like you have other classes which you are going to use, example 1, for example, you also want to check footer in second test. And when time comes to refactor, for example, your page right now going to have new design and selectors are going to change. And you're in trouble because you need to find all the places where you used footer selector. You need to search in a project with a footer, find all places and replace. And that's where PageObject comes into play. That's where it shows its handy side, because having selector specified only in one place, you need just to change that one place. That's a win-win for refactoring mode. And when something changes, when page changes frequently, selector changes frequently, that's the way how you can improve your tests. Let's try to make our tests with PageObject. I propose you, first of all, let's try to run it and see if they are green at all. We need to open our configuration file and edit a little bit. Let's leave only Chromium. Let's get back to our example and let's start it. And in order to start our test, we need to run simple command npx npm executor. By the way, if you didn't know what's that, you can watch my previous videos where we discuss in details what's that and how to use it. So Playwright npx Playwright test. We should see 2 green tests. I hope so. We need to wait a little bit. One failed and it says that locator hero is not there. That's interesting one. Let's try to explore to be visible. To be visible, of course. Now when we run, it's in place. Okay, let's move on. Let's create example. Rename example with example page object. And in this example we are going to use page objects. Let's create one. Let's go to our folder structure. Let's create a new folder. Let's create a new folder. We will call it application. It's in the root. We need to move it to the root. Now let's create folder page where we're going to store our page objects. And in this folder, let's create new file, which we are going to call home page.typescript. That's basically our class. We just need export. We are going to create class. Export class homepage. We are going to use constructor And this constructor will accept page, which is a type of page. We need to import it. Quick fix, add import. And we need to store, we need to have a couple of selectors. Let's have our hero unit selector, and that's a locator type. Let's have footer locator, and let's have get started link, get started link locator, and finally let's define it. And basically what's handy here with AI, it already pre-filled all the required code. So you create hero unit, you create footer and get started link. Let's save it for now. Let's open our page object. Now it's time to initialize our page. As we can see, it's already proposed. Home page, new home page. We just need to import our class. Now we need to use it. As simple as that. Instead of directly saying selector name, we will use handy version of it. Hero unit. The same with footer. Okay. Let's move to next test. And see, it's already proposed new home page. And let's refactor our locator. Let's refactor get started. Instead of having locators here, we can have it homepage get started link click. Now we just save it. Let's review our results. For each test we need to create new instance of our home page. Let's save it. Let's import locator, of course. Import. Fine. Save. Run the test. Now we need to have 4 tests. It's already started to look better. Now we don't have any hard-coded values here, which you don't know what's that. Now we use class and its properties, which is more better. And for example, if hero unit selector changed in the future, all what you need to do is just one place where you edit and change. Get started link. We need to review what's wrong here. Let's get back. Let's take a look at our get started link. Of course, it should be different. Let's open our spec example. This locator. I'm so sorry for that. But that's how we learn, that's how we know that we are on the right way. It's not possible to code without mistakes. Let's run again. Now it should be all green. Yes, it is. So you have 5 different pages and it's just overwhelmed to create new instance every time you use it. There is a better way. Let's create additional example spec. We will just copy our base page object. Let's rename it. Let's rename it improved. Oops, wrong. Name improved page object. We will have the same tests. We just need to get rid of new home page. How we can do that? First, we need class which take care of initializing all home pages. We are going to name it index TypeScript, for example. Now we need to export class application. This class is responsible for initializing every page object. Right now we have only one home page. We need to have a constructor, private page, and we need to initialize page we need to import a couple of fields. We need to import page. We need to import home page. Page is an entity from Playwright, as you can see, which contains all basic methods to work with HTML. Now, when it's in place, we can have here additional page objects, which we are going to implement later. But for now, we have just home page, and it's enough for us. Let's save it. Now, let's create folder fixtures. I already have it, but let's create folder fixtures in root. And this folder is going to have one base file. Playwright is known for his fixtures mechanism. That's an easy way to preload some data and clean it up after the tests. You can build rich functionality based on fixtures. You can have additional classes. You can have initialized page objects, as we are going to do right now. You can have API clients, builders initialize, which you can use in test later. Or, for example, you can have tests where your user is logged in the system and you don't need to log in every test. You can read more about that on Playwright side, but for now let's continue with our base TypeScript. Now we need to extend existing test class with additional field. We are going to add up field to the test entity. Let me show you how to do that. So we need export our constant test, which is base. Let's name it. We need to import one thing. We need to import test base. We need to import test as a base from Playwright test, and we need to import application. Let's fix it. Let's see what's wrong here. We can import index. Okay, now it's better. Our application is create a new home page. Now when we call app.home, this autocomplete, app.home page, we can get our get started link. Let's get back to test. Instead of default improved page object, instead of default test, we want to use our test, our new test. Let's import our new test. We want to import from fixture space. Now, as we can see, we use our test, which has extended functionality in a way of application on its own. We can say, let's give me our application. Now, instead of creating a new home page, we can safely remove it, and we can replace it with app.home page. As we can see, AI already did it for us. Let's move back to the second test. Let's import application. Let's remove initializing of new home page. Let's review app home page. It was easy, right? Do you agree? And now take a look on how our code looks like. It's much cleaner, it's much better to read, and it's widely open for adding many more tests. Let's run it. We can even remove our home page, no need. All tests are green, and our usability just much better, and our user experience as a tester, we're just going to glorify and enjoy our improvements. That was it for PageObject. Let's move on. Okay, Singleton design pattern. This is not that widely used in test automation, but still exists nowadays. And these patterns ensures that you have only one instance of class to use. We can have this functionality, for example, for API clients, or we can have for test data creator. We can also use it in our application case. Let's have a look how we can actually implement it. First, let's open our tests. Let's review. Let's copy our index TypeScript. Let's change it slightly. Just index singleton. Okay. Now we want to add couple of things here. Application singleton. First of all, in order to create a singleton, we need to have and we need to store its instance. We want to have new private variable instance. Now, next important step, we want to have our constructor private. So no one can call it outside with a word like new application singleton. That's not the way how we want to use our application singleton class. Next, we need a method which returns our instance. It's as simple as that. We call it getInstance. That's a static method, which means we are calling it not on our instance but on class itself. So in order to call it, we need to call it in a way application singleton.getInstance. And code we can see here. If our instance doesn't exist, if it's undefined, we are going to call new application singleton page. Again, this access modifier is private, which means no one else could call it except our own class internally. We got new instance, we store it, and then we just return it. As simple as that. Nothing more. So we are not going to have more than one instance at all our lifetime. Now let's reuse it. Let's copy our base and call it name and call it, for example, singleton. Next, let's import different class. Let's import singleton and application singleton. Instead of calling new application, we need to do it differently. We need to call application singleton get instance. We are getting new instance, we are passing it to use. That's a technique from Playwright which tells us to pass instance of application singleton inside our test body. And if we are going back to our tests, let's copy our page object and let's change it again. Let's rename it first. Let's rename it. Why I don't see an option to rename it? Files. Okay, rename it. It's hidden. Page object improved singleton. Singleton page object pattern. Sounds good. Singleton. And we need to change just small lines here. Instead of base, we want to have it base singleton. And that's it. No more changes. But now we are going to have only one instance of our application. Let's have just one test. we want to try to run it, make sure that everything's fine. We need to have 7 tests running and passing. Okay, time to talk about factory design pattern. Factory is widely used pattern. You can use for any kind of situation where you want to build different entities depending on user input. For example, you want to create, you have different user roles. You have admin, you have simple user, you have advanced user role, for example, and based on test need, you want to create different users. So you are going to have a user factory with get user method, and that user method accepts one argument with the name of the role. Or you can initialize, for example, page objects, different page objects depending on its name. And our example, I've proposed you to try to play around with our existing page objects, and we are going to have page object factory. We are going to combine page object model and factory model, and at the end we are going to have a method which returns needed page depending on parameter you passed. And let's get started. We need different index. Let's call it right now not a singleton but factory. Factory, that's where the most interesting logic going to happen. We need to call it factory. It's totally different code, and first of all we need to create interface of our page. We need to say that we want to have interface with the name iPage, and that iPage going to have only one method. Actually, we need only one method, open. We want to open different pages. For example, we want to call our builder to open home page or to open login page, and we want to return promise, and it will be void. It just promise where we open our page. No need nothing to return. Next one is our application factory, and we need to have a couple of instances. We need to have a constructor where we accept basically where we have our page. And next one, most interesting, that's get page method. It will be public. It's public by default. Get page. It accepts page string. Yeah, why not? Let's have string, and we're returning iPage interface. For now we have only one home page, but let's say if we have a couple, we can use switch case. Switch case is the most popular instrument where you can handle different inputs, different user inputs. And in our case, we can say if that's a home, we are returning new home page. If it's default, we are throwing an exception. We have an error here. Property open is missing in our home page, but it's required. Of course, because we defined interface. Let's get back to our home page. Let's have open method. Why not? And that method is just basically the page go to and home page. As easy as that. We are back to our index factory, and now it's all good, all green. Next we need to initialize our new factory. We need to rename it, and we need to call it factory. Inside our factory we obviously want to import different things. We want to import factory, application factory. What else do we need? Let's see. We probably also need to call it differently, of course. Application factory, and here we just return new instance. Nothing to do, it should be just new instance. A new application factory, and yes, application factory, index factory, and what else? Is private and only accessible in class declaration. We need to remove private access modifier. It looks better now. Let's create another Singleton. Let's copy and let's rename it. Name. We are going to use factory name. Factory. Now we need to import different base factory, and we need to work with tests differently right now because we don't have instances of pages, and we want to have it differently. We want, instead of direct call open, we can call await application get page home open. Take a look. That's an interesting way to open pages, right? We use factory. We call it get page. So inside the factory method, we are looking at parameter which we are passing. Currently we are expecting home. We can even define it differently. We can say it home for now, as we have only one home page. And we are heading back, and that's how it works. Next, we need to modify our locators, and to work with factory we can actually create a new variable which we are going to call const home page, and we are going to get it, and instead of direct calling up, we are going to call, we need to set get page home, and we need to set it as home page. This home page we can fix it, or we can set it in different way. We can make sure that it's our home page, and let's see what's wrong. In order to fix these errors, we need to play around with our application. Let's open our application factory. First of all, we need to create a new class which is going to be responsible for page factory, for paging. We need to have a constructor which holds page, this page, and then we need a method getPage, which is basically should return page depending on the way which we pass in our variable. In our case, that's a page, and if it's home, we return home. If default, we throw an exception, page not found. And we need to return iPage. Now let's slightly modify our application factory, and we need new parameter, page factory. We need to initialize this parameter in our constructor, page factory, new page factory. Okay, so page factory is in place. Now we need to extend getPage. We need to remove getPage from this class, and now our page, it should be generic. Generic is another topic on our TypeScript, which we will cover later. For now, you need to know that we are going to have a general type which extends iPage interface. It will accept parameter page and return the same type as we passed. We are going to use page factory to call get page and return entity from there. Now we need to also add open method. We need to, yes, let's add open page, but not page, we need just open page string. We are going to return promise and this get page dot open. As easy as that. Now let's get back to our test. We have fixed our error and let's take a look how we did it. We created new method getPage which basically returns the type of which extends iPage, so it could be simple page, and returns its type. We are calling our page factory method getPage. It holds page parameter which is string and returns a new instance of our page. Let's try to run it. Playwright test. Oops. It's green. For now, that's it. I wish you a good day and see you later.